guys, so I am going to be doing a Moving Beyond the Page review for 8 to 10 curriculum and for the 4 to 5 curriculum. So I have a 10-year-old son and a 4-year-old son. We originally started out as COVID homeschoolers because my little one couldn't handle wearing masks. So for his protection and for those around him, we decided to just pull him from preschool. However, with my 5th grader, it was a tough decision, but I decided to pull him as well because not only were masks a sensory issue for him as well for longer periods of time, but it was also really difficult for him to do the constant routine changes and not knowing when he was going to be out of school, then doing distance learning and all that fun stuff. So for his mental health, both of them really, we decided to make the decision to homeschool. After doing countless hours of research on multiple different programs, I ended up settling with Moving Beyond the Page. And that is these right here. So here's the 8 to 10. And on the back it tells you a bunch. We'll get into it in a little bit. And then this is the 4 to 5 activity book. It comes with an activity and parent manual. So I want to get into some reasons why we ended up discontinuing using the Moving Beyond the Page. Don't mind my kids, they're going to be running around. So for my 5th grader, my 10-year-old, the reasons why we stopped using Moving Beyond the Page were he got bored with how long we stay on each topic. And I think for some kids, how long they would stay on a particular topic, hitting all aspects of it, would actually be really good. And I thought that would be really good for his learning. But for him, he kind of gets it right away. This is meant for gifted learners, so it's meant for kids who are very bright. And he is very bright, but I think that he just doesn't learn the way this is set up. So the topics would be slightly different, but it would be hitting very similar topics at the same time. So because of that, some of the things were kind of drawn out and he just got sick of it. Like the Native American studies, he did Native Americans, Sign of the Beaver, ecosystems and ecology, he already knew most of that, so that was really boring for him. And then Native American animal stories. So because he hit the 3 aspects of Native Americans, it ended up being almost overkill for them because he was retaining a lot. Like I would ask him before he even read, the questions, and he already knew the answers because we also did some studies on the suggested online studies online where he reviewed and he read and he ended up retaining literally everything. So for him to keep going for Unit 2 into Unit 3 and then Little House in the Big Woods was a little bit different because it had the Pilgrims, so he really enjoyed reading that. So he really enjoyed Dirts and Plants. That was one of the things that he ended up liking a lot, and we had a lot of hands-on studies and stuff. It comes with a big kit of manipulatives, so whatever you need for any science experiments or for supplemental activities for every subject, you would get in a big science kit, which was really nice. The only downside is because it comes with so much literature and manipulatives, and then you have the actual curriculum pages too on top of that, the curriculum is very pricey. So that's the only downside to it, but I understand why it would be that pricey. A lot of this is mostly personal preference for what worked for us and what didn't. So just because I am saying what didn't work for my family doesn't mean that it won't work for yours. My oldest also has dysgraphia, handwriting, the fine motor abilities, the ability to space out his words so that it is actually legible is not where it should be for a child his age. When we originally started homeschool, I couldn't even read his handwriting. And now that we started a different program, his handwriting has actually gotten a million times better. We needed to kind of play around and make it work for him, because that's what homeschooling is you're working the curriculum around your child, not your child to the curriculum. So you just want to make sure that what you choose is going to work for your child and not try to force them into a box that they're not going to fit into. I think what my biggest mistake was, this is no fault of Moving Beyond the Page, was that I ended up getting an entire curriculum instead of getting language arts or science or math and trying to get those all in different areas where he actually was. I ended up getting the 8 to 10 package, and that was a mistake for me because for mathematics he is beyond what their math was, and I actually didn't like the setup of the math. I just thought it was kind of vague, and because I'm not the best at math, so I need something that's really laid out, and I just feel like it didn't really explain the lessons well. And we used it from September all the way into December, and then December is when I finally was like, all right, we're done. So for the different levels of each subject, he was much higher in math. For handwriting and written responses, he was a lot lower. And then for actually reading, his literacy skills was like 2 to 3 grades higher than what he is. So that just kind of gives you an example of why one shoe doesn't fit all when it comes to these big package curriculums. And I've also found that a lot of the homeschooling curriculums actually are a lot higher in level from what I've noticed from public school, and I don't know if that's because a lot of homeschool kids have that one-on-one attention with a parent. Some kids aren't challenged enough and some kids are too challenged, and development isn't just this stagnant straight line, it's all over the place, and that's normal for kids. I personally did not like the setup of moving beyond the page. I didn't like how the curriculum was actually set up. So looking through it, they would have their lesson, and then they would give the big ideas, facts, definitions, skills, materials, and then they would have an activity. And you did not have to do every single activity, but it was kind of hard to pick or choose sometimes, because sometimes the activities would be too much for him when it came to handwriting or responses, and some of them would be too easy. So I just felt like it was all over the place for him. And then again, that is a situational thing. It's not moving beyond the page in itself. It's that my kids are just all over the place in their development, and that's okay. It's nothing wrong with it. I did love that it is a literacy-based program. So you would read a book and that would be your lesson. And I really liked how the stories kind of touched on these major issues and these really in-depth lessons that I think that just a traditional textbook wouldn't give you that emotional aspect of it. I'm not sure if this is true for every single level, but I noticed that there wasn't really any grammar, and when there was grammar, that it wasn't really explained well. For me, I'm not good at, again, I'm not the best at math, and I'm not the best at grammar. So I really need everything just kind of laid out for me, and it kind of just said, oh, here, find the prepositions, but it didn't have a lesson, and it could have been in lessons in the prior year, but still I feel like there should have been some more review instead of just like saying what a preposition is, like to give some examples and to do a little bit more activities on it so that he would be more confident in himself and I would be more confident that he understood the material. Moving on to my 4-year-old, for why this curriculum didn't work for him. I'm pretty positive he has ADHD, and his attention span for the stories was just not there, and there's nothing wrong with that. Coming in, I didn't know my kid's learning style, so I think coming into it, I just kind of did what I thought looked best and not would work best, and that was my problem for it. So he didn't have the attention span for the stories. I found he had a really hard time paying attention to them, answering questions after. For us, it kind of got repetitive and it wasn't very colorful. For him, it does make a big difference. The student activity books just were really kind of bland. They kind of repeated the same things over and over and over again, and for him, he would just kind of like, ugh. Like he didn't like doing it anymore, you know, and I don't want that for him, especially being 4 years old. I don't want him going in and being like, oh, we have to do school again. So I think because he wasn't emotionally there and ready yet, we ended up stopping, and I ended up getting him a different program that had a lot more color, and it just was a slower pace and less big book reading and shorter little excerpts of reading, because he needs to work on just being able to listen to a very small story and then answering questions correctly. For him, in the 4 to 5, the LA portion of it, like being able to learn letters and their sounds, their identification, all that fun stuff, was too hard for him. So he just wasn't ready for it yet. But the math aspect was too easy. So like I said, their development is all over the place. He's currently doing kindergarten math now, but he still is having a very hard time with a letter identification, being able to remember their sounds. He definitely can't identify letters in the start of the word. So all of that is kind of, he's just not ready for it, and that's fine. For the positives of this curriculum that I found for our family was the literature-based program was really great for learning. I actually really enjoyed it, and I think my kids enjoyed the books. Academically, he wasn't challenged when it came to reading the books, and that's not a bad thing, because I feel like for stories, every child, no matter your age, will benefit from reading the stories. The science was really fun. When we were doing science, it ended up being really fun for some of the hands-on projects, and I really appreciated that it all came and was just there for us and ready to go. It didn't work for my family, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad curriculum. And everything's laid out so you don't need a plan, so that was really great too. I loved that aspect. The negatives of it was very pricey, and again, I understand why, because it comes with so many books, and then it also comes with the manipulatives kit and everything else. So of course it's going to be on the bit pricier side, because you're having to do a lot less of preparation and all that good stuff. For us, it became kind of repetitive, and the sheets were really bland. We like color, we like the fun, we like a lot of visual things. Both of my kids have that visual aspect that they like to learn. My youngest is very kinesthetic, so I just felt like it didn't incorporate enough of those things. And the subjects for my oldest were too drawn out and too long for him. And so I found we were cutting things short just because of that, because he was just completely losing interest and having a hard time sitting through it. So that is it for my review. I hope that this benefits somebody who's looking into curriculums. I would watch these videos obsessively whenever I was looking into a new curriculum, and I felt like there wasn't too many on Moving Beyond the Page for this particular age groups. So I just figured I would make a little video and help somebody else out who was looking into homeschooling their child. I wish you all the best of luck, and have a healthy and happy 2021. Thank you everybody for watching.